Welcome back to C++ with Miyoshi. We're going to talk about looping with do-while loops today. Here we have our familiar do-while loop that's our looping, where we have a initial condition of 1, and we have a do and a while I is less than or equal to 10. And all this is going to do, as we've seen before, is keep looping until I get my numbers 1 through 10 printed out. Again, we just have to remember that my increment happens inside my loop, and my condition is just right there in my while. Notice that the do-while loop, the do and the while, you have to have the while. One thing that I've seen students do over and over again, they have the do and they forget the while. They have the curly braces, they just forget the while. And then the other thing, of course, is that missing semicolon, oftentimes in any piece of code. And you'll get that no matter how long you've been coding, you'll forget a semicolon here and there. No matter if you've been coding a day, a week, 10 years even. Okay, so that's our familiar loop. And here is starting to count with zeros again. I have an int j is 0, and then I'm going to come inside my loop, my do, and we're going to ignore that if statement there again, just like we do with the while loops. I have my j++, and so I'm going to now print out my 1, and then I'll do again while j is less than 10. So notice it will get to 10, it'll print it out, and then it'll exit out the loop when j is 10. Okay, here is my little break here. If I is 3, so it'll get to, it'll print out my 1, and then it'll come down, it'll check to see if 1 is still not equal to 3, so then it's going to add 1 to 1, and it'll be 2 now, it'll print out the 2, come to the top, check to see 2 is not 3 either, so it's going to add 1 to j, and now j is going to be 3, print out my 3, j is still less than 10, because 3 is less than 10, and come back to the top, now it's now it's 3, so it's going to break out of my loop and come down below there. So it's going to print out my 1, 2, and 3. Be careful, and if we change this guy down to here, below there, if we point down here, if we come inside there and check my 3 there, it's going to only print out my 1 and 2, because j incremented to 2 or to 3 from 2, and then it'll skip the printing. Okay? Now, what if this happens to be a continue? Let's try that one more time, just like we did with the while loop. Continue. If we have a continue there, be careful again with continues and do while loops as well. If I have a continue with the do while loop, this should, again, once it's the 3, it should just keep continuing on. It'll looks like it's doing great. It'll get the 2, then once it gets to 3, it's just going to continue. It drops down there and it never increments. So it's just going to continue on merrily along its way, using up your CPU, and nothing's happening. However, if I put this guy here, below my j++, now we'll get to the 1 and the 2, and it'll hit the 3, it'll continue, it'll get 3, continue, come back to the top of the loop, add 1 to 4, 4 it's not 3, so it's going to end up printing out everything except for 3, just like we saw with the while loop. Okay, but be careful with do's and while loops using that continue. It can be a dangerous little command there for you. Here's some error checking with my do loop. Remember, the nice thing about do loops as opposed to while loops, it always will do the do while at least one time. So here we have our initial condition, just like we did last time. Notice it's the same loop I had with my whiles, except for I made that an int. And now it's just going to input a non-zero number, and again, this guy is going to keep looping and looping and looping until the user inputs a number that is not 0. If the user puts in a 0, as many times as the user puts in a 0, I keep looping and looping and looping. Okay? Last one here. This one here is just a slight difference, and I have 2 different scenarios for you. One here is this guy here is just inputting a number between 2.5 and 3.5. It tells the user that. Again, remember, it's going to go through the do while at least one time. So here I have a printf, and it's going to tell the user the prompt. We're going to scan in from the user, and as long as the user has a number that's outside the range that I want, so less than 2.5 or greater than 3.5, it's going to keep doing that loop. Well, if I decided to change that, so if I get rid of this guy, some people like to do while true, and so I'll just comment that guy out instead. So if I have my do while it's true, it looks like an infinite loop. But if I have this if in there, then it's going to keep checking and checking and as long as my number is, as soon as my number becomes in the range, so num is greater than or equal to 2.5, and it's less than or equal to 3.5, then it's inside my range, and that's when I'm going to break out of my loop, and it's going to come down below my while. So, different philosophies there, different ways to do that. It's neither way is right or wrong. Some people like to exit when they get what they want. Some people like to stay in the loop as long as it's wrong. It's kind of a philosophy thing almost there. But choose which way you like to do that. I've done it both ways, and you can have success either way. It just depends on what you want to do, how you want to write your code. So, looping with the do loop. Remember, the do loop always goes through these once. It doesn't have to have an increment. Notice that none of these have increments on this side. I have increments over here. They have an initial condition for this guy, not an initial condition for this guy. And again, just remember, do loops always go through once. So, looping, we have our for loops, we have our while loops, and we have our do while loops now in our toolkit, if you will. And you can do all looping of any kind pretty much with all those three kind of loops, and you can use them interchangeably, or like I've told you before in the introductory one, you want to probably usually use for loops for known kind of looping, while loops if you want to use it kind of like an if, because it won't always go in through it, and a do while loop you want to use that when you know you have to go through it at least one time to get your answer. So looping, great stuff and great part of your programming repertoire. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you use do while lots, and I'm sure you get lots of programs done with your looping. And we'll see you next time for more C++ with Miyoshi.